You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. Wrapping up what's been a really busy week. I'm sure we'll have another one of those on the other side of the weekend, but we're wrapping something else up this weekend. We're going to spend some time discussing it today. That is spring football camp for Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders. Of course, before we're out of here, we also will tap into the pulse of the portal because they're not only busy, practicing and such, but they're also still trying to assemble a roster for the 2025-2026 experience. Some of that already done, some still in the works. So we'll get to some of what's happening on that front coming up in just a moment. I want to take a listen to a pair of new coordinators for Texas Tech, of course, on the offensive and defensive side. You got new leadership, and we'll hear from both Mac Leftwich and Shiel Wood coming up in just a minute. And in general, Chris, I'm really curious about this spring and some thoughts on it from you because you've covered many of these in your time close to Texas Tech football, and this has got to kind of be one unlike any other, I would think. You, prior to this thing beginning, after the bounty that was the December portal window, you said, are we looking at the most important spring of all time? Certainly maybe the most interesting spring of all time, but man, some new additions. And I mean, right up to what? I think we already had camp off and running when one of these additions came, most recently in the form of David Bailey, and now he's a part of it. So it's been a wild one and one to remember, I do think, unlike any other.
Yeah, and you may be about to get another one too, right as spring wraps up. It was a very I think there's less and less focus on spring football nationally than there used to be because so many folks don't have spring games. It's been de-emphasized in many ways. Used to, it was – some of these programs are putting 80,000 people in the stands, and having a game. The ESPN is televising them. On and on it goes. That was pre-portal era, and then everybody was like, "Man, I'm not letting guy down the street check out and see what I got going on down here, so he can pick up the phone and call my guy and say, hey, man, you look pretty good in the fourth quarter of that orange and white game or
right.
purple and gray game that you had going on. So we got a spot. What are your thoughts? So all that. This was a big emphasis around here just because and it was a weird one, but as you look at it in its entirety, you had new schemes being installed on both sides of the ball. You had a variety of very talented players and newcomers being added to the mix immediately. Starter types, all conference potentially types. We'll see, and yet all the while your starting quarterback doesn't take a snap in any practice in that spring. So there was a lot going on. It's, but it was, and I think you want to have ensured that you got through this thing relatively healthy. There's been a few injuries and things like that, nothing major that affects the 2025 season. But there's been a lot going on here, and it's chemistry, it's timing, it's scheme, it's some of the things that you just need to practice and kind of work out the kinks or start the process of, earlier in the spring. And you'll continue that throughout the summer and whatnot as Barron gets back and healthy and all that. But yes, very anticipated in my opinion, for sure.
I'm trying to figure out which storyline I felt like had been flying under the radar because I kind of thought, man, there hadn't even been as much conversation as I thought there would be, say, about your new coordinators, which we will converse on in just a moment. How about the quarterback not participating? I don't know that there's been a ton of drum beating over that. And maybe it's because it's, for all intents and purposes, the second consecutive where you got a big dose of him not participating in the spring. There's also a storyline involving the replacement of your program's all-time leading rusher. So there are several different things that I think, aside from the portal impact, that maybe haven't gotten quite as much attention as they would have otherwise because of the portal impact, because there's a lot of shiny, flashy, and rather large and speedy new toys. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of those in the fall, Chris. But aside from those guys, you've got some big storylines playing out, some of which we just pointed to. I want to get to the coordinator angle here because really hadn't even had much of an opportunity to hear from either Mac Leftwich or Sheil Wood, your offensive and defensive coordinators, respectively. So I was interested in some recent days to hear some comments from them. And over the next few weeks, we're probably going to jog back to some of these to get a little bit further into some of what they want to see play out on their respective sides of the football. But as for now, take a listen to Coach Leftwich and Coach Wood talking about sort of the state of where their sides are as we wrap up spring camp.
The whole group really is extremely coachable, so when we're asking them to do things, maybe a different way than they've done it, they're really receptive to that and have done a good job taking what we're coaching them to do and improving, daily, making those 1% gains that we always talk about. I think we're getting better and we're getting where we want to go on the offensive line. I think going against our D-line every day in practice is definitely a challenge and is great for those guys. When it comes to Saturdays in the fall, that work that we're getting against those guys is really going to pay dividends, I think. And I think the tight ends have really stepped up. JC and TC are guys who we can feature and make plays. I've been doing a little bit more 12 personnel stuff with those guys than I ever have before in my career because those guys have earned that right to be out there at the same time. So kind of building out that package has been good. And I think our running backs are playing at a really high level right now as well. 1 week you might want to use a little bit more 12 personnel. 1 week we might be a little bit more 11. When everybody gets back healthy, we'll even feature a little bit of 10 personnel. And we've been doing some stuff, with all the running backs that we have, to the question earlier, 2 running backs on the field at the same time. So personnel-wise, we have it's a luxury to have. You have some guys that you can kind of play with and mix it up a little bit more than I have in the past.
I really like where we're headed. I really do. I wouldn't pinpoint any one area and say we need to improve this specifically necessarily. I just think that our coaches are doing a great job coaching. I really like our staff right now and the bond that we're forming. I believe that our players are excited to be here and excited about the opportunity that lies ahead for this season. And we just need time and reps. Just the longer we're together and continuing to build the momentum that we've got right now in a positive direction, then we'll just keep getting better. I've been fortunate to work with some really good groups defensively, but across the board, I don't know that I've worked with a group that is as talented as what we have here. From the first, second to the third level of the defense, the depth that we have, I think there's a lot of positions where we've got depth to where guys can come in different roles and different ways, but can come in and impact the game on Saturday. We've got a lot of growth still that we need to make between now and then, but the potential for us, I believe, to have the ability for guys to go out and play really hard and not be fearful of sustaining that level of play because we can roll the next guy in and he can play just as hard with just as much confidence. And I think that the drop-off from one group to the next, we're getting at certain spots to where I just don't see much of a drop-off. And that's when it's really fun because those guys can cut it loose and hopefully be able to do that for 4 quarters.
Something I've been thinking about when it comes to these new coordinators acclimating at this time and going through spring camp was kind of a different wrinkle for these guys than maybe in a prior era. And that is you show up and now you've got exciting additions, but you've got in some cases some high priced additions and some additions that come with whatever kind of mindset or ego they may have. And you're trying to wrap all this chemistry together. And at the same time, a lot of pressure because of how good these guys are supposed to be and what that investment has looked like. And I think previously coaches lean on guys already a part of the program, like cultural standard bearers, if you will. And the number of those guys they probably have to lean on is less than it has typically been. You think about a Jacob Rodriguez or something, but I don't think that list is as long as maybe it was in other eras. And that's probably kind of a new challenge.
Yeah, and this is why, way back in early January or whatever it was, there's going to be a lot of onus put on like somebody like Joey or Barron, even to try to mesh this all together. And you're it's a race against time. You don't have a lot of it. You need to get on the same page. You need to just get to know each other and go to off-season workouts together and all these things. We got to do all this stuff, but we need to do it really quickly, and then hopefully our stew tastes good, right? At the end of the day, whenever you're trying to put this whole thing together. And in some ways, you could maybe argue that it's a bit easier whenever new coordinators are coming in, because they're kind of in some ways learning too. So Joey's really got the room. He really, and a lot of the staff was intact, minus said coordinators. It was just the heads of each sides of the ball, but a lot of the folks, the position coaches and all that was the same. And so Joey probably had a very a lot of eyes and ears on him in a lot of these meetings and a lot of these post-practice gatherings and a lot of just whatever, whenever they get together, as we try to learn together, hey, this is our expectation. This is what we expect. And it's interesting you point out about high-priced.
First, today's episode brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. And with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and a whole lot more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Plus, it's fast and easy. You can post a job free and simply, and within a day, multiple qualified candidates are there to choose from. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
It's interesting you point out about high-priced. And how do they factor in with the investment and all those things? And that is very valid. What I think Joey and Blanchard and Cody Campbell and all, whoever's decision this was, I think it's really smart, because I think they have told people like Mac Leftwich and Sheil Wood, and Joey's not really been involved with the finances. He may have a vague idea, but that's the other department dealing with that and ranking these and then trying to negotiate that and all that stuff. Joey's not been directly involved in a lot of those negotiations. I think that they have really given instruction, generally speaking. We don't want you to know what each guy is making, nor do we want you to make a decision based on that. And I've heard Cody say this before, like nothing would please him more than if a younger player on the roster beat out one of these high-priced editions. And some will look at that and go, what a joke that is. And Cody will look at it and go, and this is beautiful because it pushed a young player, or we're now covered because we've got some, I don't think they'll look at it as like we screwed up, but I think that Sheil Wood was allowed to come in and go, I have a vague idea. He's pretty highly recruited, and he was maybe he got this or that, but I'm putting the best dudes out there. The end. And I think they have, in many cases, shown him that they are all, or in most cases, pretty damn good.
I got to tell you, that's a different angle than I really had even considered when I mentioned that. I'm thinking more about the Jack Parkman factor. Is this going to come in and be a prick? I mean, he just got re-recruited by the entire nation in some cases. He had a parade thrown for him, and not to mention the cash. But your angle is an interesting one, too, because that's talking about, hey, the general manager's dipping in and saying, first round, we paid this. He needs this. I mean, there's just all these new kind of layers or wrinkles, I guess, that weren't kind of there previously.
And I think all these guys, that's part of this. And you're doing it really quickly, but that's why, like, some of these resources you've got available to you with Blanchard and his department, and then any third party resources that you've got available to you are theoretically could be worth their weight in gold if they can vet the process enough quickly to where you weed out anybody that you bring in here that is potentially a problem or has baggage or wants this, want that. I don't think they've had an issue with anybody coming in acting entitled. I think they've all been wide-eyed from the standpoint of wow, I appreciate where I'm at right now, as they look around the new facilities and whatever it may be. And man, I love Coach Joey, man. Coach Joey's he's like a guy I've never been around. He's got a lot of energy and all that stuff. So but I think a lot of that hopefully was done prior to them getting here. It doesn't mean you're always going to bat 1,000 there in that realm, but I think that's what you're attempting to do. So, but it's
kind of impossible, but they get pretty close.
A lot of different layers. And again, we haven't gotten to the first game, so we don't know who's a starter or who's not, or who got beat out or who didn't. They're all kind of in the mix. And some of that has maybe been taken care of because a portal entry or two, it's like, well, I mean, they definitely are going to start now. There's really some of the depth or whatever may have said, hey, man, I'm going to go do this somewhere else. But, a lot of different layers here for sure.
It's a totally new era. I mean, to me, it's a little bit more of a professional kind of thought as far as professional sports.
Kinda.
Yeah, I mean, well, like just in the way that I view a head coach in those categories, like, man, yeah, your plays are great. Hopefully you got a good one, but can you also be a therapist for these multimillionaires and guys that are,
or an accountant?
Or an accountant, whatever. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I would be remiss before we get to some of the action that's happening off the field as far as portal activity, visits, targets, interest, things like that in just a moment. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that I'm hearing some very similar things here to what I recall hearing this time of year last year on the defensive side of the football. It's kind of funny that this is coming from two different coordinators now, but I'm interpreting this way different this time around. It may just be a throwaway line at the end of the day, but last year we heard over and over about maybe not a frontline all Big 12 guy, but the depth is going to be incredible. Everybody can always play hard. You can run them in, you can run them out. We asked preseason, like, is this fiction or is this real? For the most part, I think it turned out to be fiction. You want those frontline guys. Now, maybe having those frontline guys is what makes the second layer and the third layer so much better, because otherwise they could be your starters, I guess. So I'm kind of curious for your thoughts on how that sort of changed the similarities from a season ago, but now knowing, no, we're banking on some all Big 12 guys, I think, being among some of those starters. What do you make of that depth comment that to me sounded a lot like what we heard from Tim DeRuyter last year?
Last year you had quantity, not near enough quality. This year you have quality and quantity. And I think those are two very different things.
Yeah.
I think because think about it in these terms. There are going to be folks like in the way we used to do things where, okay, you graduate certain guys and then, okay, who's going to take over? And it's the juniors and sophomores, and maybe you get a little freshman activity with your team. And then it's just this constant, role of the way your team is built and everything. And most schools were solely relying on high school recruiting. Maybe there's an occasional transfer, maybe some junior college, but this is how it works. There will be guys that would have started on your defense this coming August that are now going to be second and third team, or maybe just don't get to play at all, that would have started or have said, I can't crack the code here, I'm out. I'm going to go seek an opportunity elsewhere. That's how different, I guess, things are with what you've brought in. And it should be that way when you kind of make the kind of investment but it's the enormity of not just the investment, but the number of individuals you've brought in that's what's, because you've totally, there's 10 new players on defense, 5 up front, 5 on the back end that are all good enough to start. And I mean, in some cases be like either all conference or borderline, or already were an all conference type player in Lee Hunter's case in this same league. Yeah. So, and yet you still have Mo Horn, Jacob Rodriguez, John Curry, Ben Roberts, Joseph Adedire, Charles Esters. Just keep going. Duda Banks. I mean, just keep going with all the folks that we would have been talking about a lot. And so anyway, that part is pretty fascinating to me, because and that's why I'm kind of excited about some of those DBs, because you're going to get to know them a little bit. They're not just a one and done guy. AJ Holmes, the defensive tackle, is going to be a guy we talk about a lot a year from now. But a lot of these are 1 year dudes, but the fact that Jaden Cofield is learning under Lee Hunter every single day, the fact that Cheta Ofili and Eddie Smith and these guys are learning under Romello Height or David Bailey, and they're just seeing how all this works and what it takes at this level and all that stuff. That's also like one of those. I don't know what that's worth. I can't say it's worth a win or 3 or anything, but it's worth something just to see, hey, this is what it looks like. Like you want to get to the next level, or you want to see what an NFL type, how they look, how they work, how they play. This is it. And I think for those young guys, that's invaluable at some point.
Yeah, I think that work part especially, because I'm sure these guys are all ultra talented, but they've also had to have done something Monday through Friday, I think, to kind of get in the categories that they are as far as professional opportunities, or all the teams that were lining up for their services before they chose to become Red Raiders. I have to go Jim Nantz, a spring unlike any other in 2025. There's no doubt about that. It's amazing how quickly a makeover can take place. Glow up? We don't actually know yet. On paper, she's glowing. She's white hot. But what happens when the rubber meets the road? We don't know. Time will tell. And we'll be back to that a few months from now. But as for that makeover, I guess continuing, Chris, there are still some efforts being made, obviously, in this spring window, even though technically it wasn't in the spring window. You've had one addition in David Bailey, and we've talked enough about that possibly being your most impactful addition yet. So that was kind of a surprise after December's experience. I'm curious as to what's left out there. And it seems like very quickly they've already moved into, I think, what we were alluding to just on the last episode, efforts along the offensive line to shore some things up. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs coming up, and FanDuel giving new customers a great way to kickstart the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Plus, after the game tips off, you still got all kinds of options. You can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big and a whole lot more. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com today and claim your $250 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. Efforts along the offensive line to shore some things up. So there's some beef in town, right?
I mean, this is just wild to me because it's oh no, I don't want to lose Nick Fattig and Dylan Shaw. That really could hurt the depth. Hey, let's just bring in an FCS All-American with 3 years of eligibility left in here, like in 48 hours later. And that is what's happening. And I could you could make the argument. You could make the argument. If you get him, you're better off then than you were. Because unlike Fattig and Shaw, this kid has played. I mean, he's got all the eligibility left. He's enormous.
6'6", 350. Is that what I saw? Something along those lines. 6'5", 350.
I mean, that is a large human. I mean, if you put a folding chair in his hands and tell Tyrell to like go hit somebody in the back with it, you might as well call him Andre the Giant or the Big Show. I mean, that's just a big dude, man. But the fact that he's got a year under his belt and has played well and hadn't allowed a sack in like 600 snaps or something. And I'm not saying you are going to be better off. I'm saying you could make the argument that you are. And we basically described this player when we were talking about.
Yes, we did.
I mean, almost to a T. I didn't know his name would be Tyrell Green. I didn't know he was coming from some small school in Kentucky. But this is exactly and maybe you got the best of what would be potentially an option there because he's an FCS All-American as a freshman. And so anyway, it's just and he'll be here to take in when people are consuming this show or they're at the spring game. He will be in attendance. He will be there and taking it all in, seeing what's up, seeing the the facilities, seeing the fans. I mean, it's a perfect time to host a young man on an official visit from a portal standpoint that could directly impact how good your team is this fall. So,
I look, if you don't want to buy into the trade up, given what you're just describing there or what you just lost, that's fine. But you weren't hurt. And if we're talking about somebody that's impacting it right now, I think that's beyond where we would have been penciling in those other two guys. So we'll see, but kind of crazy how quickly they can work.
I mean, it's just, and the 3 years of eligibility part is what, because what if you can talk him into, hey man, you like what you see? We got it going on here. See all those other big people? We want you to be one of those big people too. Hey, you may not get as much, run this season. However, you could have 2 years here as a major contributor, a starter, a this, a that, and this is exactly what Shaw and Fadig need to go seek out. They need to go be at the small school in Kentucky type school and be an All-American at the FCS level. And then guess what? You will get your opportunities to come in and potentially start somewhere or whatever. But it's just interesting because he's essentially could replace Nick Fadig, who was the better of the two that you lost. And I would have thought Nick Fadig could have been a really good player for you a year from now, potentially sneaking in. But you are on the cusp of maybe, replacing him with Tyrell Green, the silverback, as he calls himself.
That's right. You like a man that gives himself that nickname, and when they go 6'5", 350, they can call themselves whatever they want, I think.
And I love a silverback that's already played for a year.
That's true.
And that's a big difference. He started the last 10 games.
We talked about, for those that didn't hear the previous episode, we talked about finding those guys who have already been out there, been on the field, and now have got opportunities to move up. And sort of the course you've got to navigate if you start in a Power 4 setting, but you're not playing, and then you got to kind of head that way and then maybe circle back eventually. But yeah, I couldn't believe it when I saw that come across that he was visiting Texas Tech, because I thought, ding, this is exactly what we're trying to draw up. Hopefully it comes together. He's not a Red Raider yet, but hopefully it comes together.
Because in this scenario, like you're a little more broad based in what you're looking for in the fall. I mean, like in the December window. This one, there's a few more specifics attached to each thing that you're looking for, and he checks every box. It's like, okay, he needs to be this kind of player. He needs to play this position. He needs to be this classification, and he needs to be really good. Check, 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 check. Bingo. Tyrell, when can you get here, buddy? I mean. It's just perfect. The only thing left that I think you are looking for in this portal window now that doesn't have a ton of caveats attached to it is a slot receiver. I do think they would prefer a slot receiver that's not a one-year option. I think they would love to find somebody that had 2 or 3 years left, that had some speed, that had maybe some experience and all that stuff. But I mean, that's and then you're still, maybe shopping at tight end, maybe at a running back, maybe secondary, because Jordan Sanford has now gotten into the portal. We haven't talked about that, which there's a direct correlation into the 5 DBs you bring in. And also Malika Skara and Peyton Morgan, a couple of really good young players, Oliver Miles, there's some juice with these recruiting classes that are starting to show up, and some folks get squeezed a bit. And I think that's kind of what happened here.
Nature of the beast these days, as they say. But hopefully you continue to find some fruit in the portal, and wouldn't mind this big old piece of fruit we got on campus. How many different kind of analogies can we make to this guy? Really good offensive lineman.
And especially ripe fruit. I mean, because that's the best. It's not, don't pick it yet. It's still too green. No, some of this is like got some green on it, but it's ripe too. I mean, it's fun to be in this position when you have the resources and the structure in place to play ball, and the motivation. Because I think there's plenty of dollars, there's plenty of motivation, there's plenty of leadership and structure. And when all works like this, you lose one, and 48 hours later, it's like, hey man, guys, somebody go get the door. Tyrell's here. I mean, that's just that. It just never happens that fast, but it is potentially happening that
No.
fast
The
here.
one in the back, the big door, the loading dock.
Yeah,
You're backing up.
Yeah.
Take a few more of those guys. We've already had a few more walk in, and I'm sure at some point in the building of this new facility, they said, "How about some extra size doors, extra large?"
And
doors?
and you need to, your little your big Twitter account there, Calvin, needs to go follow Mr. Tyrell, because he sought me out and he followed me. I'm like this some silverback whatever follows you on Twitter. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's potentially our new offensive lineman. So yeah, I mean, Mr. Green out there, he's liking the Tech fandom out there, or
And
Knucklehead podcast.
that's usually the final dot to connect when there's a follow for Chris Level.
No,
Commitment announcement coming soon. I mean, that's the final bridge to cross, I think.
I don't know about that, but I was happy to go, I'll follow this young man back. Sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Well, he's big enough. I'd follow him just about anywhere. I think the ball carriers will be saying the same thing, and so will some others. So hopefully we have that chance if he becomes a Red Raider. Enjoy the spring game if you have an opportunity to enjoy it out there. Looking forward to getting at least a peek, and I think more so just having one more step taken and in our rear view as far as the time between now and kickoff, because it's taken some patience to get through this. It's going to be an interesting ride all the while. Still got a lot of little ways till we get to the fall, but we'll be wrapping up the spring. Stay with us as we'll still have a Matador Mob mailbag episode to come. So make sure you are subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you don't miss that or anything in between. Chris, appreciate your time as always, man. Enjoyed it. And we'll see you for the next one.
Your time is appreciated as well. We certainly appreciate all of the fine folks out there consuming this little show of ours, and we appreciate everybody out there. So anyway, been a wild week, man, and I think it could spill into next week too. So we'll kind of see what's happening. A lot of coming, a lot of going, a lot of getting to know, a lot of, man, I hate that you left, but okay, who's next? I mean, it's just all going on, and we got a spring game coming up. So yeah, good times, and happy Easter. Yeah.
Happy Easter as well.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate you guys for being out there. Thanks to the everydayers for always being out there, and shout out to the Matador Mob. Hit the show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial. That is your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.